Hey guys, Jasmine coming at you with another eschatology video. And we've already addressed the fact that the Bible is super weird and that there's a lot of phenomena in this world that cannot easily be explained without some sort of supernatural explanation for it. We don't really have to rehash that, just acknowledge the fact that some of these thoughts and concepts are going to be a little odd, and that's okay. So for those of you in the know, which is probably not going to be too many of you, but if you are, you certainly are, I am undeniably a tea sipper. And for those of you in the tea sipping world, I'm sure that you are very well acquainted with this year's catchphrases of demon time and demon energy. And I would venture to say that there's been some pretty good reason for all of that. I think that's probably a really great place to kick off this little mini series within eschatology on some of the bigger conspiracy theories that are going on right now. Even those people who claim to be atheists, there's a general agreement between most folks that Satanism and some of these other super secretive groups like the Illuminati are pretty heavily steeped in evil. And fortunately, insight into the inner workings of those groups is pretty limited to the people who are within the organizations, but they're pretty open about the fact that they tend to require oaths. In some cases, I suppose maybe more rare ones, blood oaths, and they put a pretty high priority on being very exclusive. And so why would you find that intriguing, or why should we find that intriguing? As I've stated before multiple times, the devil does like to copy tactics that he has seen God successfully pull off. And having previously been a very high-ranking angel with extremely exclusive VIP access to God, he probably has a good amount of material to work with, probably access that no other creature ever made probably has. And so it makes him certainly a formidable foe, but one of the things that I think is interesting about what he's decided to copy is the fact that as Christians, we understand that salvation does come through an allegiance, and in some cases we would say like an oath to align ourselves with Christ, and he sealed his end of the bargain with his own blood. And so I just find it just curious that that is a ritual that the devil or demonic groups tend to like to emulate. One thing that I do think is important to acknowledge about these groups is that in many cases the priority of these organizations is this strong belief and commitment to the true self, finding your passions, indulging in what makes you happy. And in some cases it can come across as like humanitarian, maybe not in the most extreme circumstances where, there's rumors of people being sacrificed, and I've heard many preachers say this before, that the devil doesn't care who you worship as long as it's not Jesus. So if you had to pick an alternative option that's wrong, why wouldn't you bet on yourself? Why wouldn't you bet on indulging in your own passions and desires and humanity, at its core? That seems pretty enticing to people. I can certainly imagine. And just one thing, I want to read you this passage from Matthew, the 5th chapter, verses 33 through 37. It says, "Again, you've heard that it was said to our ancestors, 'You must not break your oath, but you must keep your oaths to the Lord.' But I tell you, don't take any oath at all, either by heaven, because that's God's throne, or by earth, because that's his footstool, or by Jerusalem, because it's the city of the great king. Neither should you swear by your own head, because you can't make a single hair black or white. But let your yes be yes, your no be no, and anything more than that is from the evil one." Lucifer's own demise came from him admiring his own talents, his beauty, and his basically exclusive status. He got puffed up in pride, and we saw that few days ago in Ezekiel 28, but I think it's funny that we sometimes overlook these things because, you know, it talked about how beautiful he was, how talented he was, and he was arrayed in jewels and diamonds and gold and, you know, just these ornate, luxurious, extravagant things. Like, he probably felt that he had a legitimate reason to be puffed up in pride. And so I just feel like it's very intriguing that some of the very people who are accused of being part of these organizations, these demonic, demon energy organizations like the Illuminati, also happen to be some of the most wealthy, beautiful, luxuriously arrayed people on the planet. You know, and so bringing things back full circle to end times, because this is an end times eschatology conspiracy theory video. I think that it would be really good for us to look at Revelation chapter 18 to hear about a city that the Lord brings completely to her knees in the last days. After this, I saw another angel, a great authority coming down from heaven, and earth was illuminated by his splendor. He cried in a mighty voice, "It is fallen. Babylon the Great has fallen. She has become a dwelling for demons, a haunt for every unclean spirit. The kings of the earth who've committed sexual immorality and lived luxuriously with her will weep and mourn over her. The merchants of the earth will also weep and mourn over her, because no one buys their merchandise any longer. Merchandise of gold, silver, precious stones and pearls, fine fabrics of linen, purple, silk, scarlet, all kinds of fragrant wood products, objects of ivory, objects of expensive wood, brass, iron, and marble, cinnamon, spice, incense, myrrh, frankincense, wine, olive oil, fine wheat flour and grain, cattle, sheep, horses, carriages, slaves, and human lives." I genuinely cannot think of another city that better fits this description more than Hollywood. You can sneak so many messages and subliminal concepts. We even talked about this with regards to racial bias and these different constructs. There's so many elements of how we view ourselves, how we view others, that have been snuck in through TV and mass media and news and things that come through our screens and through our phones, that play in our headsets. I think that it's really important to keep in mind the fact that Lucifer in heaven was the headlining entertainer. He was the one with exclusive VIP access to the throne that others did not have. He was the only one that is described as being beautiful. Like, we see so many like creatures of heaven listed, and as they're described, we're like, wow, that's like super weird and doesn't sound really attractive. But like, he was described as beautiful. So I just think that it's really interesting that the primary source of a lot of our inputs right now is things that come out of Hollywood, things that come out of the music industry. But you've got influencers and things, people who are just normal people, maybe who aren't especially talented or attractive or whatever. They find a way to capitalize on these new technologies that exist. And it's just very interesting. And so my admonition to you as we close out and read Revelation 18 is just to think about, what are your ideas of this like demon energy and demonism, and is it really what you think it is? I am not in any way undermining the evil that is very present when you look at genocides or sociopaths or psychopaths or child molesters or sex traffickers or any of those things that we know are present in our world and are horrific and violent and just cruel and not reflective of a inclusive humanitarian nature. What I am saying is we're looking at the world through tinted glasses if we also fail to acknowledge the fact that demon energy can very well include this hyper focus on the self and self-indulgence and gratifying and glorifying our own talents and beauty and skills and luxuries. That is where the first sin came in from Satan. That is in fact where Eve made her mistake. She thought that there was something that she was missing, that she needed to be more highly regarded. We need to make sure that pride, which is not coming before fall, doesn't creep in. So that is the first installation of the conspiracy theories for eschatology and end times, and we will see where it takes us next. Have a good one, guys.